Hey, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today we're going to hopefully persuade some Bitcoiners that you should have a placeholder Bitcoin inheritance plan. I've been going around and been doing a couple of smaller events lately, and what I'm learning is that a lot of folks they really need a placeholder plan because a placeholder Bitcoin inheritance plan. So this may be the solution to help spur you to either get your real plan into action rather than pursuing that quote unquote perfect plan. Right. What is the saying? That perfect is the enemy of done.
Right, right.
So if you're sitting around thinking, "Oh, here's exactly how I want to do it. This would be the best way," you can continue to do that. But once you've put this sort of basic placeholder plan in place, so that God forbid anything happens while you're crafting this super complicated and super perfect plan, you at least have this backup plan in place. Does that make sense?
Right. It does. I like the phrase, like, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Very good. All right. So first, let's kind of review why Bitcoiners need at least some inheritance plan. And it basically boils down to there is no safety net. There's no default settings here. By contrast with traditional or legacy assets, your bank accounts, brokerage accounts, your house, whatever, they're all kind of connected to centralized institutions, which I know Bitcoiners hate. But that also means that funds won't be irrevocably lost. With banks and brokerages, you have password recoveries and things like that. You have institutions to whom you can submit letters testamentary and what have you to collect. And even if no one claims in a timely fashion, it's not like the funds just disappear or are uncollectible. There's a process so that they eventually go to probably the state comptroller's office or an entity called unclaimed funds. So that, again, there's basically no instance where it just disappears with legacy assets.
Correct.
That's not the case with Bitcoin, as any, I guess, hardcore holder knows or hodler knows. If you don't have a plan and if you don't have your seed phrase or your passwords set up to transfer to somebody, because of this, the double-edged sword, the cryptographic protections that makes it so secure where you're living also makes it super, super secure from your heirs upon your death.
Right.
So in sum, even though 60% of people do not have an estate, in general, people do not have an estate plan, that's actually, whatever, that's fine. That's not fine, but at least, worst case scenario, your heirs and family members just have to have a harder time getting through your estate. But if 60% of Bitcoiners don't have an estate plan, that's catastrophic loss right there.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So that's the reason why you need to have a placeholder plan. And maybe a good way of thinking of it is the base layer Bitcoin estate plan, right? This doesn't have to be the one that you love. This doesn't have to be the one that is the perfect plan that you love for cryptographic, for security, and for This is just a placeholder. Just put a placeholder in place while you draw up your treasure map. Yeah.
Right. It's something so you don't have nothing.
And then so put it in place and then continue working on your perfect plan, right? And once that perfect plan is ready, don't just scrap this. Don't scrap the placeholder plan. Use it as backup. Even with traditional legacy wills and assets, you have successor executors. You have backup beneficiaries, right? You have backup plans in traditional estate planning. This is the same concept. And you're basically making this your self-constructed or do-it-yourself unclaimed funds scenario, right? Does that at least conceptually make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely does. It's again, something instead of nothing, so you don't lose it, all your hard work, right?
And gosh forbid your carefully crafted perfect plan doesn't work through no fault of your own, or it would have worked perfectly, but for the technical lack of know-how of your heirs, then at least you have this backup plan in place. Yeah?
Exactly.
All right. So let's talk about what that placeholder or backup plan should look like. It must be frictionless for a couple of reasons. When I say frictionless, I mean easy for you to set up, not for your heir. Not necessarily. We'll get to the heirs later, but easy for you to set up. Otherwise, honestly, human nature, you won't do it. You'll say, "Oh, this is a pain. If I'm going to put in this much work, I might as well continue working on my perfect plan." Right.
Right.
So it should be low cost in terms of both money and time. So it should be in the vein of something that's do it yourself or very minimal need for outside assistance. And then it should be a plan that you know will work. And when I say work, I mean avoid catastrophic loss,
Right.
even if it sacrifices a bit, a tolerable amount for other aspects that you care about, such as you have to give up some KYC or know your client information, or you have to rely a little bit on a third party like a professional executor, or it's not quite the ideal security levels that you would like. But as long as it's within tolerable thresholds and you know that it'll work because it's, you've given up those in those areas to make sure this works, that's kind of what your target placeholder or backup plan should look like. Yeah.
Right. It sounds like a cost benefit, right? If you have to sacrifice a little bit to not sacrifice a lot.
And remember,
right.
Psychologically, remember, this is just your backup plan. This isn't the perfect plan. You're gonna work on your perfect plan after you put this in place. Right? This is just worst case scenario. Everything goes wrong. At least no catastrophic loss.
Right.
So, what does an example of a placeholder plan look like? I haven't really fleshed it out yet, but and I'm working on this. Maybe we'll spell it out or spell out a couple of versions in a future episode. But something along the lines of a do-it-yourself free will or trust, depending on the state you live in, coupled with some version of the poor man's multi-sig, which we talked about recently.
Yeah.
Or maybe even adding in a professional executor. Because I know a lot of people they get to a certain point and they're like, but who's going to make this all happen? My loved ones don't know jack about Bitcoin. And I don't necessarily trust my Bitcoin friends who know how to do it, So maybe a third party who has liability to the court and things like that, could be the not ideal but workable solution, right?
Right. It has to be challenging too, finding an executor that not only knows probate in general, but also knows Bitcoin. Because they're two very niche things, right? Yeah, niche, yep.
I don't know.
Very specific.
So I just want to sum it up one more time that, again, I understand that this is probably not the exact plan that you want, but just we'll set it up so that it works as a placeholder and eventually a backup for your quote-unquote perfect plan because we don't have a safety net otherwise. That's the sum of this.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I recommend Anthony's book, How Probate Works. Definitely applies to Bitcoin because, like you said, this is going to help you with the foundation of that placeholder plan to get you started to start with a plan.
So this is, again, based on my feedbacks and conversations from meetups and smaller quote-unquote conferences, kind of all over the country, actually, at this point. So I'm trying to get what people are thinking. And that includes throwing up your questions or comments and letting us know, email us or put it in the social media, whatever. And you're feeding the beast. You're feeding the hive mind. So please let us know what you're thinking. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate when I do send out those emails that we get some questions back. So please don't hesitate to do that.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Janice. As always, thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully we're adding to the solutions of this great new technology. And we'll talk soon next time.
Talk soon.
Bye now.